Hey everyone, welcome to Tuesday with Pastor Dan. Good to have you all here um, with me. So, I've been thinking about a lot about this thing called half truths, and what those are is when I was in seminary, um, I took a class with Dr. Kelsey, but first I was in another class where I read his book, and I can't remember what that book was, but in that he tells a story of a family who loses a early 20 late teens, so 19, 20 to 22-year-old son in a traumatic rock climbing accident. And it was all the plans they had, right? Grandkids and all these things, all these big plans they had, all these big grand plans that they had underneath the surface for their lives and what they would look like um, with that son. And now that he's gone, those things aren't going to happen. He calls those half truths. So they were true, but in the fact that they don't come to fruition, they become half truths. And then the trauma and the tragedy that dealing with those and what and how working through them he gets and where he comes to. Um, and I think about it, and I want to pause us for a second because the whole humans plan, God laughs thing, little cliche, can be really hurtful with those large macro tragedies like that. Sometimes they are. It's very true when we have these small half truths that we have little plans. Um, but in that, we deal with these on a macro scale. The big things, the big plans we make, and sometimes tragedy and trauma fall in, and we have to deal with those things not coming true. And then how do we do that? How do we as people of faith do that? How do we keep on working and trying? And some of us have been blessed to not have to. Some of us have been fortunate to have to do with it a lot. But what ways do we grab on? And this all came about because this morning, as I was having breakfast with the little guy, um, he we were listening to music as we often do because there's always music kind of going in the house, and the song, the impression that I get by the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones came on, and the lyrics go, have you ever been close to tragedy or close to folks who have? Have you ever felt the pain so powerful, so heavy you collapse? Well, I've never had to knock on wood, but I know someone who has, which makes me wonder if I could. It makes me wonder if I could. Never had to knock on wood. And we've had that feeling of the odds stacked up so high it goes on. You need strength that most don't possess, or does it come down to do or die? There's a line in here though. It comes towards the end of the song. I'm not a coward. I've just never been tested. I'd like to think that if I was, I would pass. Look at the tested and think, there, but for the grace go I. Might be a coward. I'm afraid of what I might find out. And as I was playing, I got to thinking about all the plans that I've already made for for him, for our lives now and what they look like and all the things. And it struck me like as I make these plans and I make these things, silly things like, oh, it could be a football player or whatever. What if he's like 5'5" and a buck 20, right? He just doesn't have it. He's not an athlete. He wants to play instruments. How do I deal with that? And am I prepared to deal with that? And I think about being a coward. Am I, I've never been tested. Um, I'm not a coward, but I've just never been tested. And in many ways, I haven't been tested. Uh, my grandfather just went through triple bypass, and I have to be honest, it was one of the first times I had to look at hard at life and say, what could that look like without him in this? Because really, in my life, I haven't been tested in that way, and to have to deal with so many of these macro half truths. But I've dealt with a lot of the micro ones. So what do I do? Am I a coward, or is it just that I've never been tested? But the realization is, what will I do? And therefore the grace go I. I'm going to hope that I can trust, that I can hold on to faith and hope and hold fast to the truths that I find in scripture and in faith and in community, this community, because those will prove that we're not cowards. They will prove that when we're tested, that when we do have to knock on wood, that we are close to tragedy, that when we have to deal with these half truths, we can push forward. The question is are we going to hold on to hope, or are we going to live into doom? And so as I look and I prepare for a life, and prepare for life with my son, and what that looks like and whatever it turns out to be, and potentially then without those whose whose mortality comes, who am I going to be in light of who Christ calls me to be, and also what am I going to hold on to? I know that I have the opportunity to hold on to the truth that that there is hope and life and goodness and love found in Jesus, and then also in a community of faith that I have and the people I have surrounded myself with. May you all be well. Forward to seeing you soon.